So, have you ever seen a headline like this? The psychology of people who don't obsess over sports. It sounds like a pretty straightforward question, right? But what if I told you the question itself is actually the most interesting part? Let's dig into it. Because really, that's what's hiding just underneath the surface, isn't it? The way it's phrased kind of implies that not being a sports fan is the weird thing, that it's some sort of anomaly, and being a fan is the default setting for humans. It suggests that not caring about the big game is something that actually needs a psychological deep dive. But before we can even get there, we have to look at the words themselves. And we're going to start with the most powerful, most loaded word in that whole phrase, obsess. This isn't just a casual word choice, It's a clinical term, and what it means completely changes the game here. I mean, if you look up the actual clinical definition, an obsession isn't just something you're really into. It's an idea that's intrusive, it's persistent, it can even be unwanted. This is a real psychological term with some serious weight, and honestly, it often has negative baggage attached. And that leads us to a really crucial distinction. Is your average superfan, the one with the face paint and the season tickets, truly obsessed in that clinical way, or are they just passionate, full of intense, positive enthusiasm for something they love? By using the word obsess, the question kind of frames fandom as this slightly unhealthy thing, almost like a disorder, which ironically makes not having it seem, totally normal and healthy. So, you see what's happening? The title itself creates this drama. It kind of forces us into a corner, asking if being a sports fan is some kind of pathology, while not being one is just a simple preference. That one little word choice flips the whole conversation on its head. Okay, so let's move on to the next key term, sports. Sounds simple enough, but the way people actually engage with sports is, it's anything but simple. Just think about the sheer variety here. You've got the person who plays soccer every single weekend but has never, ever watched a professional game. Then there's the person who runs 3 different fantasy football teams and knows every stat, but has never actually thrown a football. And don't even get me started on the massive world of esports fans. These are all completely different ways of doing sports. So when we talk about people who don't obsess over sports, who are we even talking about? Is it the person who does absolutely none of these things, or just the person who doesn't watch games on TV? All of a sudden, this category of non-fan gets really, really blurry. Okay, so we've pulled apart obsession, we've pulled apart sports. Now let's zoom in on the people at the center of all this. Who exactly is a non-fan? Yeah, again, this is not a one-size-fits-all group. On one side, you have people who are just indifferent. Sports aren't on their radar, they're passionate about other things, maybe it's books or hiking or video games. It's a totally neutral position. But then on the other side, you've got the anti-sports person, someone who might actively dislike the whole culture around it, the noise, the money, the tribalism. Lumping those two very different people into the same group just doesn't make sense. So let's look at that phrase one last time. It literally creates a group of people defined by something they don't do. I mean, think about how bizarre it would sound to talk about the psychology of people who don't obsess over gardening, right? We just don't do that because we don't assume that gardening is something everyone is supposed to be into. And that right there brings us to our final section, where we're going to flip this whole thing completely upside down. Because once you break down all the language, it becomes pretty clear we might be asking the wrong question from the very beginning. Seriously, what if there's nothing to explain? What if the psychology of someone who doesn't obsess over sports is just the psychology of a person who's into other stuff? Maybe focusing on the non-fan is the biggest misdirection of all. And boom, there it is. That's the real takeaway. The fact that a phrase like the psychology of people who don't like sports even exists says so much more about our culture than it does about any single person. It reveals this quiet, underlying social pressure, this expectation that you should care about sports, and if you don't, you're some kind of outlier who needs to be studied. So, this leaves us with a much bigger and I think much more interesting question. Maybe the real psychological puzzle isn't why some people don't like sports, but why so many of us as a society absolutely need them. What is it fulfilling for us? Is it about community, identity? Is it about having a safe place for tribal conflict? Now that is a question that might actually tell us something important about who we are.